Call meeting to order at 6:02. All board members are present. Our next board meeting is December 10th, right here at Canterbury Elementary School, 6 p.m. All right, first up is public communication and correspondence. And we invite members of the public who wish to speak on any of the agenda items or address the board in any way to come up or stand up and do so. We just need your name, what town you're from, and the spelling of your last name.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Fain. My last name is spelled F-E-H-N. I live here in Canterbury. I'm here tonight because I understand you're talking about the 5th grade and potentially not having it at CES going forward. My family and I are very in support of keeping the 5th grade at CES. I have 2 kids in this school right now, a 3rd grader and a 1st grader, and in a couple of years I'll have a 3rd kid going through CES. Both of my kids in elementary school right now have IEPs, and I can't stress it enough how much they would benefit from having 5th grade here at CES. With a smaller class size, with kids they know that they've gone through all the grades with, just having that extra year, I really feel that the kids would benefit from having a smaller class size before they're moved into a brand new school with other kids, larger class sizes, and essentially potentially just becoming a number in the system is what we've worried about. In addition to just having an extra year, because we live on Intervale Road, so my kids will have an extended period of time on the bus coming from Belmont, and we would greatly benefit from having just 1 extra year of having the kids here where we can easily pick them up, drop them off, and them not having an hour-long bus ride, potentially an hour-long bus ride. And I hope that everyone here could understand that and you take that into consideration as you're discussing your decision about whether or not to continue to have 5th grade here at CES. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kaylee Shepherd, that's S-H-E-P-H-E-R-D. I live out on Morrill Road and I have 2 children. One is in kindergarten now and one will be in kindergarten next year, both going through Canterbury Elementary. I myself went through Canterbury Elementary starting back in 1995 and did 5 years here, 1st through 5th grade. And I ended up homeschooling for 6th grade because my mom felt that I wasn't even ready at 6th grade to go to the middle school and be with older kids. And I think it's really important to give our children the opportunity to continue to be children for as long as possible instead of forcing them to bump up and make them grow up just that much faster. Also being on Morrill Road, the bus comes by at, Randy, what time does the bus come by?
6:10.
6:10. So for a 5th grader at, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, is that 10, 11? 10, 11 years old, 10 years old, coming by, the bus coming by at 6:10 in the morning and having a 1 hour plus ride. It's really important for me and my family that we be able to stay at Canterbury for another year.
I'm assuming you're next, so I'm like,
I'll jump right in. My name is Rebecca Plue. My last name spelled P-L-U-E. I live here in Canterbury. I'm a mom of 3. I currently have a 1st grader here at Canterbury Elementary School, 2 younger ones that will be coming through over the next decade. I very much am hopeful that the board is going to consider maintaining 5th grade here at Canterbury Elementary School, alongside the various topics that the other 2 women raised. I very much believe as a child psychologist that the executive demands within a middle school are not appropriate for a 10-year-old brain, and I think it would be beneficial to our children to have the choice in terms of the cognitive, social, and emotional needs of each developmentally appropriate child based on where they're at, for them to be able to be maintained here at Canterbury Elementary. So I'm hopeful that you all will consider that. Thank you.
anyone else? Next up, our members of the Budget Advisory Committee can come on out to the table. Where would you like to start? Oh, sure. Debbie has information.
I've got a lot of information.
Oh, well, she has a lot of information.
Okay. So the first thing that just having Michael distribute is the tax rate history since 2018, 2019. This is a breakdown of the local support state tax and the total school as a percent of the total town tax. And then the bottom half shows the breakdown of the tax rate completely. This is something that typically is in the public hearing document as a graph, but I wanted to distribute this ahead of time so you can see that there typically is that 60% of the tax rate is portioned to the school, and you can see the ups and downs of the tax rate over the years. The next thing I have is a report that has been asked for a couple of times. Where does the final tax rate compare to what we estimated when we set the budget? So this report shows what we had for a estimate when we did the budget development last year, and then it shows the final tax rate, and it shows the changes in revenue based from what we had anticipated back in January, February. So as you can see, there were some significant changes in revenues, and we were able to come up with a decrease in both the Belmont and the Canterbury tax rates from what we had anticipated. And the majority of that was the $982,000 in the fund balance that was returned. The last two pages that Michael is handing out is, just 2 pages. The estimated revenues at this point for what I'm anticipating for revenues to offset the current budget that we have proposed, and what it looks like based on the current year valuations and what those tax rates would be based on the current budget that was proposed. And this is the superintendent's budget that was proposed, the 1.89% budget. And you'll see on the second page, it appears that the combined local and state tax rate for Belmont will be going up 6.87%, and Canterbury will be going down 0.34%.
So those are the tax rates. And you've got the one evaluations. What's that? Roughly $300,000.
So it's on the second page. So the combined local and state tax rate is a 6.87% estimated increase and a 0.34% decrease for
On the
Canterbury.
second page that you don't have.
So this would be the estimate that we would put into the public hearing documents based on superintendent's proposed budget. Of course, those would change based on any other changes you have to the budget.
All right, Debbie, you're gonna have to explain this to me.
Okay.
How is the
Which one?
Canterbury going down and Belmont going up so much?
Because if you look at the equalized education and the statewide property tax, Canterbury is actually receiving more equalized education grants than they received this year. So the estimate next year is they're going from 505,000 to 571,000. So that's additional revenue. And you have to raise less statewide property tax. You're going from 599,000, dropping to 588,000. So you have to raise less than statewide property tax, you're getting more in equalized education, and I'm estimating an $800,000 fund balance at this point. So when you go through the whole apportionment, using the current year valuations, that's what it breaks down to be for an estimated tax rate. And if you look on the tax rate history, Randy, you'll see that if you look at the Canterbury specifically, you'll see that it goes up in 1819, goes up in 1920, and then drops for the next 4 years, and then starts the up again. This is cyclical with Canterbury.
It's because we assess every 5 years.
Correct.
Is a tax rate a sliding scale? The reason I'm asking is, I know what I did in my house valuation was, and what you have listed on this page 2 is.
This is the school tax
Oh,
only.
school, you're right.
Debbie, on the last, what we estimated versus what the final tax rate
Yep.
was. Can you not walk me through, but what was the percent, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, what's the percentage that we projected it to go up versus what it did?
It's not on there.
Isn't it the 1446 versus like the 1349 in W2 versus the 9?
That's dollars, not percent.
Oh, sorry.
All right, I think that's fine. So roughly a $2. Canterbury, $1. Right?
Yes, so that's the
This is
difference.
Belmont. Belmont, it was $1.91 less than the estimated and compared to 37% less.
It's fine. I don't need it. I just need it. Okay. Mark?
I had it and now I lost it and can't find it. What page is the anticipated rate?
So it's the last 2 pages that Michael handed out. One says revenue proposed in the lower right-hand corner, the other says tax rate proposed.
Tax rate proposed.
The ones with the 3 hole bunches.
Yep.
So the tax rate proposed, the Belmont tax rate that we're anticipating based on the valuation that was used to set this year's tax rate, the current ADMs that we use, which was last year's, and last year's equalized valuation, and the estimated revenues that have been provided by the state, and what I'm anticipating, it would appear that the Belmont's tax rate is going to go up 9.9% for the state education tax, 6.53% for the local school portion, which is a combined 6.87%. Just for the school. I don't know what the town or the county would do.
Other questions about the Debbie's passed out?
I guess one question I still have is, on the page where you have basically the estimated tax difference for home values in Belmont and Canterbury. We've been talking for months now about, $5,000 here, $15,000 there. How much of all this work we put in impacts that?
Very little. Very little. You're looking at, if you just look at the local share, it's $9.70 per thousand. But when you cut $5,000 out of the budget, it's not $5,000 that goes against Belmont and $5,000 against Canterbury. It's a portion. So there's only a small amount.
So I'm not expecting this now, but I'm curious, the difference between a flat budget versus a 2.5% increase. What
So,
would you expect to see? What would the
if-
average person is?
I can get that very quickly for you.
You have to do it now, just.
Well, she said she could get it very quickly.
I have it.
So if she has it very quickly,
She knew I was gonna ask.
So if the budget were exactly the same as what was passed this year, and so Belmont would be a 5.55% increase, and Canterbury would be a 1.4% decrease
On a flat,
on a flat budget,
no increase.
no increase.
We would actually, yeah.
and that's because of the adjustment.
It's because of the revenues, the apportionment, and the valuations.
Not necessarily revenue.
Element?
Thank you. Relevant to this year's budget, but I think New Hampshire raises the income tax at 5%. Year after, so that.
We get an income tax? We don't have an income tax. Are we getting it?
On
Meals?
interest and dividends.
Oh, interesting dividends.
So I'm just curious, I'm sure it's on the site for, does that help with the revenues for the school district, or is that money tend to go somewhere
No, it
else?
goes elsewhere. It doesn't come to us.
It was just a general fund, I assume.
Yeah.
So if we'll see a 5% increase on a flat budget, then the next one be, if we had a 2.5%, if we use 2.5%, what would it look like on a 2.5% increase?
5.5%, or straight 5, would you say, for a flat budget?
5.5.
Oh, 5 points.
So if you had a 2.5% increase, it would be 9.25% in Belmont and 1.57% in Canterbury. 1.57.
So, help me understand again, the budget goes up 2.5% dollar-wise. The tax rate increases much more than that. Why is that again?
Because the revenues aren't changing. So you're not adding additional revenues to offset that increased budget.
And what percentage increase did you give us as estimated?
So 1.82.
1.82.
So I guess a follow-up question would be, 5.5% increase, 1.4 decrease. How am I using that to calculate a dollar?
You're not.
Well, he's asking,
So how do I know what those percentages, how do they impact?
So if you had a 5.5% increase in your tax rate, what you would have to, I can give you the combined. So if you had a 5.55% increase in Belmont, your combined tax rate would be $10.68 per thousand. So you would take the home value of, say, the 100,000, divide it by 1,000, and multiply it by the 10.68. So it would be $1,068.18 would be the estimated tax for 25-26.
That's if the school budget was 2.5%.
That was if it was level funded.
Yeah, that's flat.
And Canterbury, so that's an increase of $56.18 over this year. Canterbury, which is a minus 1.4%, again, you take the $100,000 home, divide by 1,000, multiply by $14.93. So the tax bill would be $1,492.79, because there's rounding behind. So that would be a $21.21 decrease over this year's tax bill.
So these numbers that we're looking at are basically 1.69% school budget increase.
Or 1.82.
1.82.
Yeah.
So in looking at the revenue proposed for 25-26, it shows 800,000 in the unreserved fund balance.
Yeah.
In 24-25, we had other income, we don't have any in 25-26, because these are all estimates, we don't really know what's going to happen, correct?
Correct. So I'm not estimating any other income for next year. Typically, other income will come in, like the $146,000 that I had this year was because we received that OPED grant. And we couldn't use it to apply to the budget, but I was able to use it as other local income when they were setting the tax rate. Because I knew by September that we got that grant.
We are seeing a 50% drop in Medicaid distribution.
So far, we've gotten nothing this year. Last year was a really boner year. It was amazing how much we received, and this year we've gotten next to nothing. I believe last year there was a lot of recapturing some of the prior that had not been collected, and they've made some changes to how and what qualifies for reimbursement this year. So it's much more difficult getting the sign-offs that the state is requiring for us to get reimbursed.
And then the special ed aid went down significantly, which we discussed
Yes.
at our last meeting.
Yeah. And we also have a couple of students that won't qualify for academy next year. So that's another reason that that's reduced. And you can see the other state sources for phase out. That was kind of like a hold harmless on the equalized valuation. So as Belmont was getting less and less each year, they were giving them that phase out where they kept funding a portion. And next year, it's very little that Belmont's going to get for the phase out.
So Debbie, on this page label revenue proposed, I'm trying to remember, because I missed the last meeting, but with these drops in some of these claims that are going on with the health flat, for example, child nutrition, with the budget that the board is currently considering for 2026, are we holding flat or dropping services provided to the students?
No, so that's a very good question. When you're looking at the revenue from federal sources and when you're looking at food service, at the end of the budget, there's those transfers to other funds. So those are designed to be self-supporting. So whatever we have for a budget amount for those, transfer to food service, transfer to federal funds, we estimate revenue to equal what those are. So that way we're not raising taxes to support those programs.
Well, I've taken the raising the taxes out of the question, and I've taken the losing example, but I see disabilities and some other stuff here.
Yep.
I'm asking the question, what's in the proposed school budget? We're holding those areas flat or dropping, or we reducing services and people to do that?
We are not, no.
So as we continue to provide those services, and those services get more expensive to provide, we're getting fewer federal dollars to support those services to offset.
Yeah, which affects the local tax rate. But the bottom line is, all the discussion we've had the last 2 months, we're trying to maintain those services.
Correct.
Well, and the truth is, with a lot of these, you can't not provide them.
No, I'm
I know.
not suggesting we cut it, I want to make sure.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, it's not like you could put that on the table.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting.
Yeah.
Debbie, on
Yes.
the tax rate proposed sheet at the bottom, so the estimated annual combined local and state tax, did you say that that was just the school portion?
Yes, yeah, that has nothing to do with the town portion, nothing to do with the county portion. Because that's going to be dependent on their budgets, which I wouldn't have any information on. On the history of the tax rates that I gave you earlier, though, I do have, and I do provide the detail at the bottom of the 4 components of the tax rate for each quarter. But that's historic information, and that's nothing going forward.
Any other questions about?
So Sean, based on the kind of the question you're asking, just rough crunching numbers on the increase, if we did the 2.5% on a $400,000 house, we're looking at somewhere around $750 increase, give or take, I think. I think that's
What is it?
on a $400,000 house with the 2.5% increase, you're probably looking at somewhere around $750 increase for the year.
So you're saying you go from 278 to 750?
No.
No,
Mark,
no, no.
I don't think that's right.
The increase on a 250, what size? What, $400,000? $374 over this current year.
Because the budget that's in front of you is, the sheet that's in front of you is already at 1.82%.
Right.
Yep. Sorry. Didn't account for that.
Yeah, I mean, the exercise is really more of my frustration with all the work we put in that has pretty minimal impact on what the average $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 home.
Well, Sean,
Somebody coming back.
outrageous, but on the other hand,
What's that?
always do this due diligence to decide how to spend money. So is it making a big impact? Maybe not. On the other hand, making, I think, appropriate decisions. So if you're thinking you're wasting your time, I don't think so. I see Randy smiling, so I don't know.
I always say that it's a very humbling experience to go through the school budget.
Well, I mean, honestly, when I started this a couple of years ago, I thought, oh, great, we can make a big dent in it, but, you know, reality, Michael's credit, Luke's credit,
So Michelle, should we bring up the, what was it, lengthy topic last time was using the reserve to try to fund stuff for next year? I know, I think it was said to bring ideas to the table on that.
Sure, that piece didn't get to me, so go ahead.
I mean, just running down the easy low-hanging fruit stuff. I mean, if we looked at all the capital improvement, and I know that we kind of beat it to death on if we funded capital improvement with reserve fund, and then the following year went into default, and we couldn't, then
Right.
those funding those lines couldn't be on the, you know, on the default. But it's approximately 327,600 without the paving. I mean, the paving being, close to $500,000. But it looks like there's enough money in the expendable trust to cover all of the paving. Is that correct for next year?
There would be, but then you're using all of that, and you won't be able to do some other projects that you have
Got it, okay.
earmarked later.
Yep. So, I mean, we could, if we so choose, or so chose, to fund all of the capital improvement with the, with that, the leftover revenue, there would still be a cushion. And then the following year, if we did actually run into the situation where we would be on a default, we would still then have the reserve at the end of the year to fund, those items again, as a safeguard. That would basically bring it down. That would erase that, whatever the 1.85 or is.
So part of the problem with that is those retained fund balances are included in the estimated revenues. So if you use those, that's going to drop your estimated revenues. Because you really shouldn't be planning on using your retained fund balance to wipe out things that are supposed to be proposed in a budget. And you have to have a public hearing, obviously, but it really begs the question again that you are not being very transparent to the voters. It's a way of circumventing appropriation authority.
Right. No, I mean, it was a lengthy conversation, last time. Like I said, I mean, I don't know who said it, but look at the budget and bring the numbers forward. Running down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nine items on the capital improvement. It could be done.
Why can't you bring that up in the deliberative session? To use it? Is that too late?
You have to have a separate public hearing.
So I think the hard part of that is, so like right now, if I'm reading this right, the balance of that fund is 704,000. It's going to be roughly 600,000 for all the capital improvement costs. There's 100,000 in the budget, and then they were going to pull 500 anyways from that, and then put 150 back in, which isn't in.
Correct. That's a separate warrant article.
Yep. So at the end of the year, it would be 356 still. So the only thing that was hitting the budget was that 100,000, which they do every year. That's where it got tricky. Because if we take that out, then that no longer becomes part of the default.
Right. But I guess I was looking at, the 10,000 for network upgrades, 20,000 for the tech trust, 30 grand.
That one.
Yeah, 30 grand for bathrooms. Actually more than that. 30, 60, 67,000 for bathrooms, and 50,000 for field drainage.
So if you go back, I'm not 100% following what you're saying. You're thinking about parking lots in the high school with bathrooms, just like as time goes by, these conditions get worse. So you've got a relatively small budget here now, and you want to spend money to get some of these bigger items. It's only going to get more expensive years later. As we just discussed, the actual impact of project taxes is pretty minimal. So I get you might have to have a public hearing, have to be an expectation of the taxpayers. They understood what was said, it almost makes sense to do it.
Are we talking about pulling it from the fund balance?
Yes.
I don't think we could do that unless it's something catastrophic.
So you're
I'm confused about, I guess, I was always under the impression we could do it if we, had a flood somewhere or like, I didn't think we could just use that money.
and the auditor agrees with you.
So that's the case, why the hour-long conversation last time?
Well, that's what, go ahead.
So I was the one that started the conversation about it. We were talking about if we got a default budget, what could be paid and what could not be paid.
Right.
And then I mentioned the fact that this past year we had $1.7 million left, including the revenue and what was left over from the budget. I never really got the number that was left from the budget.
But I was making the comment that if we have funds always left at the end of the year at that level, why can those funds be used to be able to funds now? Because you know you're not gonna use everything in the budget, because everything becomes the bottom line at the end.
Right.
So.
So
why
what I
not use
hear
our
you
funds?
saying is we could use it if we chose to, we could fund it this year, we could use this year's money
Yes,
to fund it
you could fund things that,
right now,
Right.
which wouldn't be the fund balance. It
Correct.
would be,
Would not be
we're
using the
projecting
fund balance.
1.4, I don't know what we're projecting, but we're projecting 1.2
that
million.
was last year.
So 807,000.
Yeah,
Well, 800 to return,
correct.
were you holding any?
There will be some, I mean, a little bit of extra revenue, and we still have half a year to go to see if we fill positions or what we're going to be overspending. I know there's a couple of other positions that are needed in special ed that were not included in the budget.
But, so we have, so it wouldn't be taking it from fund balance, it would be
Right.
paying it this year, out of this year's budget.
Out of unexpended and reserved budget this year.
I think historically, we've done that only for specific purposes.
Correct. Typically, you do things like life safety. On occasion, you have done things, if you had to do major cuts in the budget, you have opened some funds for schools to purchase furniture or supplies that were cut. That was many years ago, because since then, you haven't really cut
So it
supplies.
hasn't just been
So,
like.
yeah, so usually it's, you try to do life safety or major projects that have to be cut.
It's still early in the budget, this year's budget, to make a determination, in my opinion, as to what we're going to have for that fund balance. We're fairly confident in the $800,000, but a good portion of that is based on vacancies that we have currently that if we fill between now and the end of the school year, that number decreases. So our process historically has been, we get closer to, say, the end of April timeframe, when we really start to put a better finger on what that fund balance looks like. And then as a board, we can discuss potentially using some of those funds to fund other projects and things that weren't currently in the operating budget, but not to purposely reduce a proposed operating budget. I've never gone through that exercise before.
And $100,000 is 6 cents on the tax rate per thousand in each community.
So I wasn't going to suggest that you use that to use complete budget, but my question was to do that with the things. There's a couple of fuels in that capital budget. Is there any way we think about what the retained balance will be? And you're up to that work, and maybe you turn it off if it's not there.
There's no way to estimate what the retained fund balance will be. We're allowed to retain up to 5% of the end of year fund balance, and I don't have that number yet, so I wouldn't be able to estimate that at this point.
So to clarify though, you're proposing that we spend the money now to reduce the budget, the proposed budget.
So I'm not sitting here proposing, but that was part of.
Right, I'm just saying that was
part of right. So, but the additional retained fund balance for this year is basically on top of what we retained.
No, it's not cumulative. It's reset every year.
It's reset.
Yeah. It's a separate calculation.
What, June 25?
I'm sorry?
When is the end of this year? I don't know.
It's June 30th.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so then when I close the books in August, I would know what the retained fund balance, or what the total fund balance is, and then calculate what the board can choose to retain.
Just to make sure I'm clear, the retained fund balance is different than the unexpended.
Correct,
Those are
yes.
two different-
Retained fund balance has to do with last year's budget, closing out last year's books. The current unexpended, unanticipated fund balance is based on this year's budget, not looking at excess revenues, clearly looking at just the total amount that was appropriated and how much of that is going to be spent or unspent.
Yes, at the end of the day, I think this is what we were talking about the last budget meeting, is what things could we knock off the list and take it off of next year's plate.
But I walked away from that meeting thinking there wasn't much we could do. But if there are, we should be investigating.
And again, as Michael said, it's rather early in the year to be estimating what we're going to have for a fund balance to say, yes, we can remove $100,000 from buildings and grounds projects. Because I don't know what's going to happen, and we might get to the end of the year, and we may not have the 100,000.
So if I was to put Jeff on the spot, which I will.
All right.
Jeff is a contractor business, let's say the parking lot closed on that. For a company of yours bidding on that, you need a commitment to say go or no go. Because the other thing is you've got to line up that, like based on whether it'll work, to say I'm available for that 1 month to work.
Yeah, well, paving's not, that kind of is not a real big thing, because for summer, but like, I know, well, then Michael will tell you, like the bathrooms and stuff, they have to be done between, what is it, like a couple weeks in July and August, because you have summer school and everything. So like some no-go is basically on what the school is being used for. Say, like, we did the drainage, like, we did like a dry well. That was easy for us because we're like, okay, they seem to drain it.
But what I mean
We
is,
went in, but
some of these projects are not all of it that you're thinking about, they're competitively bid. So companies would ever in that, and say, look, we want this work done, see if we'll have it, I need a commitment. And it has to be a contract by such and such date, right? It's not guaranteed that I'm going to have work to do, or that I'm going to do the job.
usually 60 days.
60 days. So, Mike, let's back, you said roughly around March, April, we started to get contracts. So even if you don't put it in the budget, somewhere along the next couple of months, before you have the conversation decide ahead of time.
I think the question right now is, what do we want to do, if I'm getting it right? There are things budgeted in next year's budget for like buildings and grounds or something, whatever. Do we want to reduce next year's proposed budget by funding out of this year's monies? Is that what I'm understanding?
I think we want to investigate it.
What does that mean? Tell me what investigating means.
But
Are there certain things next year that make sense to do now? Why are we having those?
When you say now, you mean now in June, right?
So has buildings and grounds talked about that?
we haven't met since that. But I think buildings and grounds isn't the best example to use because I'm assuming in the proposed budget is only the $100,000.
Correct.
So that whole 600, that like isn't there because we're pulling that from the trust. You would think it would be there and then show the withdrawal, but it's not. So it's really only the $100,000 that affects the proposed budget. And as Debbie pointed last week, if we take that out, we no longer get the security of having that extra.
So what is, historically speaking, there would still be unexpended funds to fund that if we went to default the following year.
Right, so if you went to default, then you could say, all right, we want to take $100,000 from the retained funds to do this paving so that no one trips and falls and pothole.
But again, that's not really the purpose of the retained fund balance, to just say, oh, we got a default, let's go use retained fund balance.
She's not talking about routine fund balance, we're talking about monies we don't expend.
So reserving money from.
Or just knowing we're gonna have money.
Yeah. 100,000 is not gonna do the parking lot.
Right.
But to Mark's point, it's the report that's in the budget. So like we already know we're getting all the other money from the trust. So we said if we went to default and that money needed to be used for something else, could we then take the money that we know,
We're not going to spend.
right, and use that 100,000 to get that done?
Technically, you could, but if you go to a default budget, there may be other things that you're going to lose that you may need to consider.
This, I think we're just trying to
Yeah, so,
understand.
no, I know.
Like I said, buildings and grounds is the best example.
Yeah.
So if you want to explore it, who's going to explore it and who's going to make the recommendation? Because I'm just, like,
And our recommendation would be that by
yeah, like
Next
next
week.
week. I was going to say, this is friction. Like, so if you're gonna, if this is where, and I'm perfectly fine with this, I don't have time to do it, but, who wants to meet about it? Who wants to propose and make a recommendation? Either yay, nay, use this, do that, whatever.
So again, that's why I went, when I went through some of the capital improvement, this is where I thought we were supposed to be, bringing this time around, or bringing to the plate tonight. Low hanging fruit is, a little over $327,000 that we could, start to get in, or potentially start to get into works. And not, paving is off the plate because it's such a high, high dollar amount. But things like the field drainage and,
Well, help me understand something. I'm using paving as an example because it's a big number in my head.
Yep.
And several meetings back, I asked the question, how's that dealt with so we don't get slapped with $500,000+ in my budget here? Somebody said, we're doing an account.
The expendable trust.
Putting money in it. So the question is, if that trust is building up and there might be some leftover money at the end of this year, do you make a decision to pull out of the trust early and use some of the money this year? Not just in that market, using that as an example, because we only know this stuff's going to get more expensive.
Correct, and we do have the expendable trust, we have a CIP,
Yeah.
and we have things earmarked in different fiscal years.
Right, I know.
So you can certainly pull everything out, but you've got HVAC systems that you're gonna have to be dealing with, and there won't be anything left to
I
deal
think
with
we're
then.
saying the same thing.
So, yeah. Yeah, and Mark, can I just find out where do the, what is included in that $300,000 that you say is?
Field drainage, CES bathroom. Let's see, looks like there's 2 middle school bathrooms, both 15,000 each. The tech trust.
What do you mean the tech trust?
There's tech trust.
Well, you can't take money out of the technology CIP. So you have to use it for something.
No, not pulling it out, but we would fund it.
Now, we
Cor-
use money now.
Correct.
You can't use it now, you don't have voter approval to do that.
No, he's not suggesting you pull it out of the trust.
No, he's saying put the money into the tech trust.
No, he's
Oh.
not. He's saying buy these things now or do these things now with money in this current budget. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, sort of. I was kind of also thinking, why not? If we're proposing to put $20,000 into the tech trust for next year, why not do it this year?
Because you don't have voter approval to put it in there.
Can we ask
You need
for that?
voter approval. No, it's got to be in a warrant article.
Well,
And you've got to determine, is it going to come out of raised taxes, or is it going to come out of fund balance?
Right.
So you can't use it, you can't say we're going to fund it now, because you don't have the source now.
Okay. All right, so that one doesn't apply.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm a little thick here, but we voted in March, right? So why can't there be a warrant article to use some of this money that's private to get done in March?
Because the annual meeting we're having is for the fiscal 25-26 year, so it doesn't take effect until July 1st. So we can't use money out of this year for that budget, for that warrant article.
We'll go back to Randy, or you made this point, Mark, to what your question is. If you go to building and grounds, what is in this proposed operating budget is basically $100,000 for building and grounds in the proposed operating budget. All other expenses on that CIP list are coming out of the trust. For the technology CIP, there's $25,000 in the proposed operating budget. So if you're looking to reduce your proposed operating budget, the max that's in there to cover these projects is close to $125,000. If you were going to do those projects out of this year's budget. If you did those projects out of this year's budget, you're looking at reducing that proposed operating budget by a maximum of $125,000.
Proposed to 25, 26.
25, 26.
And what's the downside of that?
You lose it out of default.
Yeah.
So if you get a default, it automatically goes away. It's not part of your ongoing
Yeah,
budget.
so the default budget goes down.
So it was me that had brought this up, and the intent was to look for one-time purchases. So, and I'm just eyeballing this, and you can be like, that's not one time, Randy. But like the new literacy workbooks. Like, so it was like a $4,600 increase. Like, could we knock that off with it? Because it's an additional amount because it's new. Another one would be like any type of furniture. Like, we've always talked about doing like some sort of trust for furniture. There's furniture that's needed, can we knock that off? 3 acoustic guitars, like, can we knock that off? That was the intent behind this. It was one-time things that wouldn't necessarily be part of the budget in the following year.
So I'm a little, I want to use about it. Honestly, the taxpayer, of course, I understand a lot more inside discussion here of the taxpayer. But it appears to me economically to do some of these capital projects earlier than later makes sense. And the only thing holding back is the fact that in effect following the 12 years of the default budget, from a financial standpoint, that's not necessarily right. I get the politics, but you read what's going on with all this stuff and supply chains and all this stuff in your capital budget, and it's going to get more expensive. You probably underestimate it, but will be by the time you go execute on it. And those are real needs. I mean, not that acoustic guitars aren't, but some of these building issues are, they need to be dealt with.
So I completely agree.
Yeah.
But when we talked about this, it was about taking things, like I said, that wouldn't impact proposed budgets.
Yeah, and I'm not on the proposed budget discussion. I'm really more on smart dollars spending for capital issues that need to be dealt with.
But it does affect proposed, Jay, because, and
I know it affects.
no, I'm saying that's the discussion we're having. So if we do it now, the bottom line that's going to affect the proposed, there are 2 ways it affects it. One is $125,000 out of the proposed budget. And then the other is it affects the potential default budget moving forward, right? Those are the 2. So these are $125,000 essentially in cuts to the proposed budget. So would it be a 300 and something thousand because a portion of that?
Right, because I was looking at it the wrong way, and,
Yeah.
and I get that.
Right.
And so.
But yeah, no, what I'm
It's okay
saying
to
is,
be wrong.
but it's still 125.
Right, it's
Yeah.
a step in the right, in the right direction. And if we, like what Randy was saying, I mean, realistically, we could probably find another, 50 to 75.
I think I just wanted 40,000.
But it wouldn't be out of retained fund balance.
Correct.
It would have to be out of this year's unexpended, unencumbered
Yep.
budget.
Correct.
And at this point, I can't guarantee that we have that to do all those projects. And still, we cannot overspend the bottom line of the budget legally.
So like we have a $43,000 bump in purchase professional services for technology because of the technology upgrades we're making as part of the CIP. Could that be paid for with this? Like that's paid for with what? With unused funds at the end of the year.
Right now, the budget.
You could plan on doing that. You've got to present a budget to the voters in March. You can cut that out of there. The problem is the license we have for that is going to be gone by the end of this year. So we need to have that one way or another for next July. I can't guarantee if you cut the 125 plus the other 40 and the others, I cannot guarantee right now in this budget that you're going to have unexpended funds to cover those purchases.
So I think what we need to do is when we get to the end of the year, bring back our books and say what.
But at that point, you already have a
Well,
budget.
yeah.
and you have
Either
the
pass the
budget.
budget, pass the individual lines or not, or we will have presented to the public the individual lines.
Correct.
They vote on a bottom line.
Right.
But you don't want to present a budget to them if you think you're going to cut something later, because then you're over budgeting. And then how do you explain to them, yes, we budgeted for it, we were hoping to spend for it out of this year's money, so now we're raising $40,000 more in your taxes than we technically needed to in the budget we presented.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you made a comment a little while ago saying that a cut of $100,000 is equivalent to 6 cents.
Correct.
On the tax bill.
Yes. In both communities, 6 cents in each.
So it's a real concern for impacting the default budget for the following year. Because I mean, knocking off $100,000 to $200,000 of capital projects, we definitely need now.
We have the need now.
Meaning, when I say nothing, meaning, it's hard for me to understand the default budget we get. Because it's not. I realize it's not a guarantee.
Right.
What I struggle with doing that, Jay, is that we spend time putting together a capital improvement plan in order to forecast the funding for those projects, and we throw a monkey wrench in it by doing something out of the forecast, then it messes up your years to come.
I agree.
So we've done such a nice job as a school district and this board of forecasting our projects, being responsible for funding in order to do so. And when we start diving into that forecast, it could cause a storm down the road. And that's not something that I would advocate for. I think it's a gamble.
In addition,
Particularly when we talk about 6 cents on a $100,000 reduction. I definitely agree with the point you're making about it's not going to get any cheaper to do these projects and go down the road. We anticipate that every year we look at our CIP in those projects and to the best of our ability update the costs associated with those projects. So I struggle with messing with the forecast.
additionally, we do work very closely with Steve Dalzell for planning them out. We can't possibly get all of the bathrooms renovated at the same time because the buildings, we need them for other things during the summer, and so you can't just do them all at once. So,
it'd be an easier thing to explain out if we paused, like you were saying, Randy, if we presented the budget, get to the end of the year and said, hey, now might be the time to spend some of these, some of these funds, that would just increase the amount that we return the following year. Assuming that we got it done. And if someone asks that question and say, geez, how can you have $2 million this year versus $1 million last year? It's a fairly easy explanation of, well, we chose to spend money here in hopes to, save money, and as in Jay's point of view, where, it's cheaper today than it is tomorrow. So maybe we spend a lot of time on this conversation that we didn't need to. But
bad discussion.
no, I mean, we definitely have a better understanding of it, that's for sure.
Okay, let's talk about CES teacher vacancies.
I asked a question, this came up and I can't remember exactly what you said. There was a question about leaving it in the budget and putting like $1 there, basically.
That's by a function.
What's that?
That's for a function purpose. that had nothing to do with the teacher.
Okay.
So that position becomes still part of the overall salary line within function. The 1,100 function, correct?
Correct. Yeah. What I was referring to was truant services. So we could not hire a truant officer and pay them out as a truant function if we did not have a dollar in that line.
So I am not in favor and never have been of cutting fifth grade out of CES. So I've been said that multiple times. Both of my kids went to fifth grade at CES. My concern is budgeting for something that we're not using next year. So I'm only talking about next year. But I am very concerned if, like, what's our number? Yes, we can't project 2 years out, but I don't want to be in a situation, quite frankly, because I will still be on the board at that point, having to fight for a fifth grade teacher, and then what are we deciding the number is, right? Like, is 9 kids enough to run a class? Is 8 kids? Is 12 kids? Like, I don't want that because, but I also think it's irresponsible for us to have $72,000 budgeted when there is, we're not using it this year.
Well, what would, so basically it would just come down to a numbers. That would be the debate for us as the board as to whether or not to reinstate that position. I mean, because money, I mean, if we see the value in putting that position in because there's 8, 10, 12, 15, 15 parents that say, nope, I really like, my son or my daughter to stay in Canterbury versus going to Belmont. Would anybody here be able to sit here and say, nope, I'd never be for it again, if we eliminated the position? I'm a pretty nuts and bolts guy, and I would say that.
So when we first started talking about this, like how it kind of seemed would be that this would fund the position for next year. And I understood that until we all started talking about class sizes. And then my concern is that, we're going to get here and it's going to be, 9. Or what if whatever happens with the class size conversation sets precedents for things down the road. So let's say there comes a day where we say, okay, and I know this is a horrible time to bring this up and have this conversation, but it's an example. Let's say we say 5 kids to run an AP class. Otherwise, you got to take it through VLAX. And then it comes back with, so many kids. I don't want to set precedents. Or it could be the other way around, 10 people. And then we get 9 fifth grade class. So we say, that's my concern, is it didn't even cross my mind until we started talking about class sizes.
So I am also not in favor of cutting this position. You bring up a very good point, Randy. The class size becomes a factor. With this, when there is a situation where we have, a small enough number where we don't necessarily want to run a fifth grade, and we have, I believe the kindergarten has 21 kids in it. I think the first grade has 22. The second grade has 23 or 24. I can't keep track. My daughter is not great with that number. And our third grade is currently 20 students. Why wouldn't we, and I know we have 2 teachers for kindergarten and 2 teachers for first grade, why wouldn't we continue to separate these young kids with these class sizes? I know that my daughter's second grade teacher gets overwhelmed with 23 students in her class. She can't keep her eye on everything. And she's also new to the school this year, so it's one of those things why would we reallocate that to separate class sizes that are just 23 students in a class when they're all, 7 and 8 years old. It's a lot.
I guess the other turn it around, I had this question this weekend, was why are we adding more teachers to PBS to get those 20-something kids down to 10?
Right.
Because aren't we one district? Aren't we all supposed to have class sizes? So it's a double-edged sword, because now I'm starting to hear, well, why don't we have enough teachers at BPS? And I was like, well, there's not enough space. It's easy, it's like a given. But there is that question of, where's the equality for one district where we're saying 10's okay in Canterbury, explaining 20 is okay. But a few years ago, we had 23 in a second grade class. You know? And it's like, so I get it, but I also think it's a two-edged.
Another thing that I have actually heard you say, Sean, is you don't want to see another withdrawal study come back. By taking things away from Canterbury, I fear that would happen.
And I think we ought to consider adding more classes to BPS. Because we're going to deal with that question constantly.
Do we have the class sizes for babies?
Yes.
All right, let's look.
Well, I don't know if we have it in this.
It's not in the book.
Oh, it was in the forward packet.
So if you sort of wrap.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm not maybe knows this question, but I think the question to be answered is, does the original charter say that Canterbury is supposed to have all the way to 5th grade? When the district was put together.
I can look.
At that point, it would have been 6 through 6th grade, I think.
Yeah, but there's language in there that says that at least 5th grade, because if not, then you have to hire a lawyer, right, so they can find it out. You think it's removed for some reason?
Yeah, I'll look at the charter. I don't believe it said in the charter what the grade spans were going to be.
But if it does, I do believe it's 6th grade.
But we can play it in up to 5th grade.
So if that's the case, then
Then
they
there
could
should be
do
6th grade.
K6 here. We could do K6 in Belmont if we move the elementary school to the middle school, and then just have 7th and 8th grade up in elementary school. And I'll just, that was a huge hand grenade, so I.
Are you talking about switching,
Restructuring, which is, I think,
restructuring
something.
which building houses which ages in Belmont?
It was something that I was thinking about a few weeks ago.
So when I came here, the SAU building was 7 and 8, and it was junior high, and then you went to the middle school for high school. Go ahead.
So another thing, I know they're trying to find it, but, yeah, the conversation about looking into, because you got the diagram of how everything's structured in the school district, but if we could maybe not affect it in the next year, but you can look at it, restructuring the school district so that we don't have a little too much personnel in one school when we could bring it over to another school and then actually look into that, because I think that there are some decisions that probably could be reduced in some places and maybe some positions become a school district. I mean, we're not a big school district, but district level, instead of having repeated positions in order to actually impact the budget. Because obviously, yeah, right now we're talking about $100,000 some dollars, but I think there can actually make more of an impact. I'm really concerned about that. What the original chart, I tried to look for it and ended up with a right note there.
So the bylaws state that, well, this one has been changed, 3 members from Belmont and 2 members from Canterbury. That was changed by a vote later on. It says that Shaker Regional School District shall be responsible for grades 1 through 12 and may assume the responsibility for kindergarten by majority district vote. There shall be a school maintained in each pre-existing district. It talks about the property that's going to be acquired. Belmont was the Gale School, Memorial School, Belmont High School, Canterbury was the elementary school, and a bus. It says how the budget is going to be prorated. Talks about foundation aid, talks about building aid. Trust funds will be held by the trust of the trustee of the trust funds. Shaker will provide transportation within the district for all public school pupils within the district. in accordance with state law. Talks about the annual meeting. And it does not say anything about maintaining certain grades in any of the schools. And in March of 1998, it was amended to 7-member board with 4 from Belmont and 3 from Canterbury.
So if it's not in the chart or where it is designated for reporting purposes, is at the state. So Canterbury Elementary School is designated as a K-5 school, and every year we have to confirm that or provide a change in grade configuration. So Canterbury Elementary School is a K-5 school according to the reporting at the state level. That's what I'm saying, it can change every year.
So at some point, you drop from K6 to K5.
That came up beginning of this year as to whether or not we needed to change the grade configuration CES because we were not offering 5th grade. And we asked that question specifically because I didn't want to change the grade configuration. And we didn't have to because we just didn't fill grade 5. But we have not changed the designation of a K-5 school in Canterbury. It's not in the charter, but it's how it's designated at the state level.
Would eliminating this position force us to change that?
No. Because we would have had to change it this year.
We were still holding the position though this year by eliminating this.
So I think it's important to look at this position as it is a vacant teaching position in the district. It's been discussed at Canterbury 5th grade, but it's still considered a vacant teaching position in your teaching pool of staff. So the impact, if the board is looking to reduce the teaching position in the district, you have multiple vacant teaching positions. We just know that we don't necessarily need a 5th grade position next year, but that doesn't mean we can cut it out of the proposed budget. Because if we need that position in another school, then we still be in the budget in order to do that without changing the designation of Canterbury K-5 school. So it really comes down to, do you want to reduce teaching positions or not? And if we were to do that, there are vacant positions that would not have an impact on student learning next year. So there isn't, so you're now talking about $72,000.
Can you clarify why it's 72? Because if we're replacing a retiree at 49, why would the CES teacher vacancy cost us 72?
That's what it's budgeted, it's in the budget. So that position is in the budget for the total cost of $72,000.
But to replace the retiree, which will cost us 49?
That's based on, that's the savings of the change.
Oh, okay.
So like the 5th grade teacher would be like a step 1.
That's a bachelor's step one, single plan.
How members issue for the next school year, because there's no grade students or drops for the number and big impact on the top.
We currently have 9 students in 4th grade at Canterbury. 8 of those 9 families have said that they're sending their students to Belmont Middle School for 5th grade next year, so that's 1 family. However, just as we discussed earlier, our current 3rd grade at Canterbury Elementary School is 20 students.
Yeah,
So
no, I
we'll
wasn't-
have 20 students in 4th grade next year. So that ties into what I believe Allison and Randy were saying. Then it comes down to discussion around class sizes for the following year.
But to your point, this teacher vacancy, theoretically, we can keep it in the budget, and if we needed it, it could be a Belmont position. Exactly. If we needed a Belmont. So it's not a CES position.
Because the way this conversation is sort of shifted tonight is we're talking about a teacher position in the budget. Might be needed at PES, might be needed at Canterbury Elementary School the following year. So You're talking about a pool of teaching positions.
How many classes per grade at BES?
There's 4 is the average.
Also, for someone, third grade is 3.
Yeah.
3 to 4 is the average, because we're hoping for a fifth kindergarten class at BES, but we weren't able to fill that, so that's why.
So there's like 20.
So 16 and a half average report. 17 and a half.
Well,
14, 2.
So for purposes of the conversation, if we reallocated the 5th grade position in Canterbury to either the middle school or the high school, a year from now, we're either having a conversation about reallocating it back to Canterbury or adding another staff member if we deem it fit. So either way, unless there's a warm body here in the building that's being reallocated within the building, next year we're going to be having the conversation, whether it's an additional staff within the district or if we're reallocating back to this building. Am I understanding that correctly?
We have that conversation every year.
Right.
And in the past, we added a position to a school to reduce class sizes that was not in the budget.
Right.
Because we were just said that we were going to monitor the budget in order to do so, to make sure that we don't go above the bottom line. So there's all kinds of options for us. It just peels it back to the board interested in reducing our teaching staff, regardless of whether that's a vacant position in CES or wherever that might be. Because the salary line includes majority of them. All the teachers are in the 1100 function. So it's one salary line.
I think what you're saying, I mean, it makes fiscal sense, to reduce the budget by that staff member, and if we need it back, we bring it back.
well, I just changed my mind. Well, because it was never about 5th grade for me, because I don't want to come, I never vote to come 5th grade, I shouldn't say never, but I can't see myself ever voting to remove 5th grade from Canterbury. But I am not comfortable reducing a teacher position because I don't think we even have enough at some of the other schools. So, that's why I changed my mind.
I also want to remind people that teaching position is in my proposed 1.82%. Debbie provided those numbers for.
Ask a question from the budget perspective. So if we decide to keep the position and they don't then what happens with that small group of students? Are they forced then? Is it just one?
Right now. 1 out of 9.
But people can move in and then if they're going into 5th grade.
How come they didn't try and get like a second, 3rd grade teacher for that big class, knowing that we weren't going to have 5th grade?
I think because we were so focused on the 5th grade that we didn't think that.
I'm curious.
What else? Sorry, we also had to fill that position. I believe that was a late resignation as well,
Right.
which was surprising, particularly for an elementary teaching position, to not be able to fill.
Because we have an empty classroom, right?
No, a classroom.
And what's in the 5th grade class now?
Student services.
Okay. Where would they go if there was a?
That's one of the smaller pharmacies upstate.
Any insight why these parents want to go to the bus?
Most of their siblings are going to middle school.
So some of it is.
I mean, I get that, with a long perspective.
It's not just a long bus ride, they have to get off at the high school and then get on another bus and then go to the middle school. So I can see why for kids without siblings in the middle school, that would be a very.
Well, that's all the parents thinking, that they sit with them, understand their child, they can wait.
I'm sorry, as far as I know, they don't get off at that high school, they just stay on the bus, and they run back to the middle school.
Oh, good, my son told me that he had to get off one bus and get on another.
That may occur if there's a bus shortage for the latter part of the morning. So that's not a daily, it's not a daily.
I think that it's really about what works for the family and for the child. Jay, does
Pardon me?
I think it's really what works for the family and for
No, I
the
get
child.
it, I just,
And not all families in Canterbury have an hour bus ride. My kids got picked up at 7:05 and arrived at the school by 7:20. So it was actually longer to take the Canterbury bus.
okay.
And I still kept them in Canterbury. So, but again, it's really what is best for that family and child.
Well, so listening to the discussion, if you decide to keep position fund, a position fund in the budget, that's one thing, but are you thinking that you're going to have one teacher for one student? Or are you just basically deciding right now to keep a position fund? Do you know?
So
I'm looking at, like I
that
said,
decision
around
not been made.
No, it would be, I think the only decision we're making now is to keep it in the budget or not keep it in the
Right,
budget.
okay.
Edgar?
If the concern is it's only 2,000, can we go through the budget and reduce some of the other accounts that are increased? So that it matches the 72,000, since everything is bottom line, and 72,000 will be there no matter what? Because we won't have to pay for a teacher, but the money will be available if we reduce the other accounts that have, increased to equal that 72.
well, by the higher level math, 72,000 is worth about 4 cents per thousand.
I was just gonna bring that up.
Right, but still your point.
So,
But
so
every cent matters.
Well, either that, or I was gonna ask if the, said the decision was made, but would it be our expectation, if the consensus is that we could use an additional staff, whether it's teacher, aide, some variant of elsewhere in the district, would we say, okay, if fifth grade isn't being used, where are we going to use this money as staffing, with the understanding that position may be terminal, after a year.
Right.
Well, potentially. I mean,
Yeah,
we
no, I
may-
agree.
We may
I
see
just-
value in it and then just choose to add, but that's definitely a possibility. Or do we just sit on that, money? I don't know if we need to decide that or not.
And Edgar's point is that if you could reduce other line items, knowing that.
And you just overspend.
Right.
Just let the public know that that's what's happening. So that for parents.
when you say it was for that, so you can't go from one item to another.
Everything.
No, you can move between line items, you just can't overspend the bottom line.
Okay, so if you had line item 1,100, you can spend that on line item for special ed. That's not.
We just overspend it.
Yeah, so-
Or underspend it.
Yeah, you would overspend a line in the budget, knowing that you're gonna underspend another line in the budget. We got away from transferring monies from one line to the other years ago, because that's not transferred. Plus, it's very difficult to put together a budget the following year based on what your actuals are. Because if you're always moving monies throughout the year, you're your actuals are never actuals, they're never accurate on what you're spending once per year.
So would that be like, just an example, like the workbooks, acoustic guitars, so we would decrease those, or would that have money elsewhere to offset? Is that here?
Furniture.
Yes.
Yeah, there was like a 49,000 increase somewhere in there, right? For the license. At one time payment?
Yeah.
But again, that's assuming you don't need to hire a teacher for another
For 50.
class.
Oh,
But if you're talking a staff member, if you ended up in a very large class at Buckman Elementary and needed to hire a teacher, then you use that money for other things, so you'd have to find it somewhere else in the budget.
Maybe we could use that to fund robotics, at least for a year.
Oh, Mark. It's waiting.
So with this position, what do we want to do? It was included in Michael's budget. Do you want to reduce other line items, as Edgar was talking about? Do you want to leave it as it, like, what do you want to do?
I'm okay with, I mean, with the position staying there, as long as you make a concerted effort not to just sit on the.
Use it either somewhere else or as, but not cut. They want to catch it.
So, you understand the point. If, I think this thing came up as well, what, a couple of years ago. You're not planning to spend this money for that purpose. So,
We don't know what.
we don't know, I agree. So you leave it in the budget, and then you're talking about, if you don't fill the position, you spend money elsewhere, assuming you don't have an unforeseen expense in some kind of payable. If you have an overrun because you underestimated something, you still have to provide the service, and you spend money there. But here, what I've been talking about is, well, we fund this position with the real intention of buying acoustic guitars. I don't think that's really what maybe the.
No, we were talking about like lowering the.
I know.
The cost for those, knowing that we weren't gonna fill it here, and then it would balance out. We would actually
Which is
overspend.
essentially what I just said.
Okay.
So
It
what?
sounds nice when you said it.
So if you reduce the staff here, you have to go back to the voters to ask the increase here the following year. Or the budget, either the budget is reflecting. You have to specifically ask the voters to ask the increase.
No, you don't have to ask to put it in that specific position. So if the board was to reduce its proposed operating budget by $72,000 out of that 1,100 salary line, then that $72,000 is not part of the proposed budget for 26, 27. They would have to put that $72,000 back in for that
Right,
position.
that's not specific.
But to Edgar's point, during that budget development process, the board at that time might say, well, we have to put a position back into the budget.
Right.
Where can we look to see where we did save in the proposed operating budget to cover that additional position compared to just automatically calling it an increase?
Well, it wouldn't even show as an increase, because if you budgeted in the 1100s, knowing that you're going to spend it in other lines, it still shows in the budget because we don't transfer. So it doesn't even show as an increase in salaries and benefits. It would show as an under expenditure.
So the other option would be just decide to put it. You don't necessarily spend money elsewhere in funds, whatever happens.
It would end up in fund balance, and then if the board voted to retain fund balance, part of it would be here.
Or we go back to offset taxes.
Right. The whole thing, Randy, I think the whole thing, reason this really came up is a couple of us in the room, like, you're putting this position out there, you know you're not going to fill it, and you're going to spend the money elsewhere. That's a lot. However, I mean, 72,000, or whatever the size they have. I mean, I guess to some people, it's probably material, but to most of the taxpayers.
Edgar?
So when they ever proceed to be close to the default budget, there's 3 sections here that I found that add up to about 71,000. The purchase of services for the wireless access points, that's 43. And then in the curriculum section, the testing, EW, there's an increase of 15,700. And then the cost for the ASC meeting, the 12.5, that is up to about 71,000. We can drop down to a $1 mark and then just overspend to still keep the mark. Because those are single items, right?
So it's in a function that you have to worry about, but the NEASC, we know we're gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's the accreditation. That's not within that, that's within the 2410 function.
Yeah.
So you don't have to just put $1 into that account because the 2410 already has more than $1 in that function. That SCUDA testing is currently being funded out of a grant that we're not going to have the funds to be able to do that. So that one is, I believe, a 2122 function. So that one we may, if you're still going to do it, but we do have to do that testing.
I believe the increase you're talking about with the district-wide testing is for our IXL testing that was in ESSER money that are now increased because it was covered by a grant, but will not be covered anymore, so that would eliminate that testing.
No, we just use part of the 70,000 that is there to fund it this year, and then next year we just have to fund it higher.
Yeah.
Because it becomes a normal thing. For now, it's just the one
Sorry, it's not you're not comparing a transparent budget to people. That's what I struggle with, is that you're already planning to use monies that weren't being
Can we not be
appropriated.
disclosed to the public in order to reduce 70,000 on the budget?
It doesn't sound like you're reducing $72,000 out of the budget. You still want the money in there for the teaching position, but you're not anticipating to have to fill it. So you're presenting a budget with all of these salaries and benefits that you're already planning on not spending because you're planning on spending it somewhere else. That's just going to open the voters to say, let's cut the budget.
Yeah, but it'd be, the number proposed to the public would be $70,000 less.
No, that's not what the discussion is. The discussion is still put the $72,000 in for the teacher, but just plan on spending it in elsewhere. You're still,
Which I guess would reduce other lines.
it's going to reduce other lines, but that's
Yeah.
not really your intention of your expenditure that you're planning.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you can just really say the same thing. The way I see it is that you're still budgeting for a basic teaching position that you're anticipating using those monies elsewhere. So that's, to me, that's the way I see it. And even if you go to the public hearing and try to explain that, that's very difficult to explain to the public. We budgeted for a vacant teaching position because we're going to use those monies to potentially keep our district-wide testing in play. I would have a hard time explaining that.
So that being said, we should eliminate it for a year then.
Well, is that the only teaching position? Like, I'm just, like, we tried to get a kindergarten teacher at VBS, right? Another one, and we don't have that. So we're budgeting that for next year, right? It's the same thing. So this isn't the only position.
Well, I don't know, same thing, have to try to fill the position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It's a little different because we know this year we're running really high kindergarten classes because we're able to fill that teaching position at PES, but it's a little different than CES where we're talking about we didn't touch every class in one.
Did I hear that there was some classes here with the other one?
Yep, all of them are grades. I should say the total enrollment of the grades are that number.
So what,
Kindergarten is,
what's the practicality of bringing the teacher in to not move those two of the classes down and the staff, some of the staff are going through that for 35 years?
yeah, so that goes back to your point also. Use that vacant teaching position to reduce the class sizes at CES.
Yes. But then you have to understand that the teachers are willing to step up and do those classes.
And that's always been the case.
I was going to say, I think most of the teachers at CES can float.
Yeah.
I know that Mrs. Week has been a fifth grade teacher. She is currently a kindergarten teacher. I think that's the understanding of most of the teachers at CES.
Just depends on your credentialing.
So we can fill that vacant position to reduce the other classes, grade levels.
Yeah.
At CES.
Because currently there's one class for third grade and second grade. Second grade has 23 students. I'm looking at the student report from November. Second grade has 23 students in one class with one teacher, and third grade has 20 students in one class with one teacher. That's, I believe, higher than most of the classes in Belmont Elementary.
Why don't we have max class sizes at the elementary level?
Sorry, what?
Like maximum, like
Okay.
get to a point where we start looking at, like to Sean's point at PES, they do have higher numbers.
Particularly with kindergarten right now, which is why they're trying to hire for work.
Space is definitely an issue with elementary school.
So I think the thing you're wrestling with, it sounds like people kind of gravitate to the funding decision. And it goes paid. And then the only question is everybody comfortable with the fact that the proposed budget goes up?
Well, it doesn't
Some of
go
the-
up because you are keeping it.
No, I think it's out.
No, it's
No, it's in the proposal.
Oh, it's in it.
I like the idea of making it a flex for this coming year. And
What
then,
would it include?
I believe I mentioned this at the last meeting, so if the board puts forward the 1.82% and that's voted down to the default, we might be having this conversation again. It comes down to the comfort level of what we want to propose for our budget. But you might be in a position if it ends up in the default where you're going to have to.
it was in last,
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
So my,
Yeah, it's on the bottom of the bottom of the purple.
The purple. Okay.
The default's at 1.2%.
so how do you and I have this discussion? If you, the default budget got approved, I understand what it is. So does that mean right now you can tell the board the default budget got approved, just as what's not?
I already laid that out.
Yes.
Brought it within $10,000.
I don't mean dollars, what physically is that?
Those items are listed. Which in Bob's comment last meeting is there's a roadmap to get there already.
Okay.
But if we can follow that roadmap, then you know what your dollar amount you're gonna have to come up with.
I mean, realistically, if it's
1.25%.
1.82% or 1.65%. My thought is, difference in that, whether we decide to go to the vault or not, it's relevant. But that means deciding to go to 1.65% budget for projects with Jensen and
That's why I was saying, if we can get as close to the default as possible, so it's more likely for it to pass. And such a big difference like this.
well, last year we were almost 1%.
No, 63, 16.
What?
62?
The difference is only $151,000. That's 6 cents. Sorry, 7 cents.
Talking about last year.
No, that's the difference
No, I was saying
between
last
the
year.
default for next year.
And those all, I was thinking it was between that percent, half and 2% increase in the voters.
No, it was higher.
Yeah, okay, it was
Like
fine.
6.
Oh, it was 6, that's what
Yeah,
you're telling me.
2.2.
Okay, all right.
But what was missing last year was the EAD tax bill that we got this time. And what helped the current tax bill is the school district sent money back in for Canterbury. So like we put in 500,000 to lower the tax. Extra. That's what I about for where I am was about $500 and some dollars to drop the tax bill. So it makes a difference when you look at it next year. When everybody's getting the original tax that they're supposed to get.
No, then our taxes are going to go down in December, Canterbury. According to this.
Oh, no, it won't even matter.
So, what do we want to do?
I mean, and they currently is included in the account, in the budget, right? So if you reduce those other accounts and we express it to the public that those were reduced to prevent the town from losing the fifth grade position, which most likely will be needed the following year. And that's why we're keeping the decision, by reducing the other accounts, it'll still even out. But we will come up to the public, $72,000 less on the percent budget.
I think it's my point of view, right? I'm following you completely, is that we wouldn't even have to say that we're reducing those lines because they wouldn't even be part of the proposed operating budget. So you wouldn't have to do that explanation in the public hearing because you're not including it in your proposed budget. You haven't reduced anything at this point. So when you're presenting your proposed budget at the public hearing, those lines won't have funds in them to show an increase or decrease. See what I mean? So you don't have to, you wouldn't have to explain that anyway whatsoever.
And we can do it.
I mean, you can do it as part of this proposed budget development process of reducing other lines if you're looking to reduce the budget by $72,000 and maintain that position.
And that 49,000 going for this year, we won't have to do it next year because for 8 years or so, that would get the license for the wireless. Right? The 43,000.
I think it's 5 years.
5 years, yeah. So it's a one-time thing that next year when you come back, you don't have to come up with the money for it. So you won't see that increase there. And it prevents the problem of coming back and having a conversation with the provider.
I'm comfortable with the 1.2% increase. Feel like initially, when stuffing gets removing fifth grade for me, it was personally just budgeting for something that we weren't spending. But if we can have the need for it to just move that position somewhere else next year, then offset other costs of the position can be filled accordingly. I'm comfortable with that. However, we do it as a fall, I think that would be the first thing that we would have to look at one of these.
in this, I'm actually unclear where we're at totally because I have 1.82 and then I have something else in front of me that says 1.69, which is pink thing. I just want to be clear what we're looking at.
So the 1.82, go to this pink page here.
Yeah,
The 1.82 includes all of what are known as the known budget adjustments,
yeah,
okay? That brings us to the 1.82%. If you reduce the budget by these potential other adjustments, that's what brings you to the 1.69. The original proposed budget that I brought forward to this board back in October was at 1.68. The known adjustments that we've made since then
so up
is
here
at
is
1.82.
1.82.
Yep.
And then, so we need to figure out what to do. We haven't decided yes or no on these potential other adjustments. Is that what
You know, we talked about that being kind of the roadmap. We
That's
your call.
the default, for either the $10,000 in default.
We also haven't made a decision on robotics.
But why, so right now, we have PSAT testing in the budget.
Yep.
And the PR, benefits coordinator position adjustment, subs at 150 a day, still in there.
So the list of potential other adjustments has not been made. They're not included.
Do you want to look at the other adjustments? Do you want to talk about robotics?
I'm sorry. You just confused. So on this sheet, it's 38,000. If I do a line there, that's the 1.82, right? The 1.82 would include the 78,000. What you're saying on this next line down, when you pull these out, then you start talking these over.
Yes.
So we're going to, yes.
That's what I just had that realization.
Okay.
And we haven't talked about, so do you want to talk about robotics or do you want to decide on any of these other adjustments?
I think if you start at the top and like Sean one out, instead of moving the conversation around and confusing,
Okay. So start with these. Is that what you
move
said?
from the top down, and that way you can keep the conversation and focus on what.
So the first one, because we can't do anything with the above, is the CES teacher vacancy, which really isn't CES teacher vacancy. We want to keep, have we agreed to what Edgar was proposing, that we keep it in the budget and do some other areas? Or,
So my personal feeling is that we should be using this as a flex resource for this upcoming year and then stay in the budget at 72 no offset.
Edgar?
But you're having trouble hiring people, so most likely you never be a hire since you're having.
I'm definitely confident in being able to hire this vacancy. It's an elementary position. The reason why we weren't able to hire our elementary classroom positions, in my opinion, is late resignations. We're past the hiring season. So if these were vacancies that we posted this spring, I'm confident we would get multiple applicants for elementary teaching positions. It's a little more difficult to get into the middle school and specific content areas at the high school.
But if you end up with a default, it's one that we with the person cut.
Potentially.
Other thoughts? I'm in favor of keeping with no offset.
I guess a flex.
What do you mean by flex? Can you explain that a little bit more?
It would be a third grade teacher or a second grade teacher for next year.
Oh,
and
yes.
then fifth grade
Yes,
one.
in that way, as a flex then. I didn't realize that this looked like that. So.
I'd say if we're not gonna fill the position and keep the dollar figure as is, I'd like to see it go toward robotics. This will get that fund for a year, right?
So you're proposing sort of what they could propose that some people are comfortable with?
Well, possibly it wouldn't be going towards, either capital or one-time expenses. It would be going to coaches and
So
all the
you
people.
would show, you would get rid of the vacancy in line 1100, period, and you would add funding somewhere else for that amount of money?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Other thoughts? Okay.
Can I propose?
Sure.
Why doesn't somebody just propose a budget increase based on this, put a motion on the table, see if it passes, if we get 4 people to say yes, would that feel good?
No, it's already in the budget.
What's that?
That stuff is already in the budget.
Huh?
We're trying to cut it back.
Basically, you're saying let's do it,
We're just going back and forth.
Right.
About the same thing over and
say whether or not we
over.
agree with the one.
Somebody's comfortable with a 1.82% budget increase, put it out on the floor and let's vote, and if we get 4 votes, and pack it together. If we don't, then we talk further on this.
Make a motion to, do the budget with a 1.82% increase.
Okay, so there's no second. I feel like we still need to talk about robotics, unfortunately. I do, I think we need to talk about that. Okay.
There's no second.
So there's no second. So you want to talk about robotics? So I think that there are certain things in this list that we can maybe take out so that the PR benefits coordinator position, the PSAT testing, and the classroom supplies because we don't have a 5th grade. And we can put that money towards robotics. If we were going to do that, then I'm second that. But we haven't talked about that at this point, so. So those are certain that
Robotics
aren't
is so
happening anyway,
important.
so if we take that
Robotics
money.
is so important. Why is it not in class?
It is.
Okay. So the lady that came in, again, I wasn't here the last meeting, but the lady came in and talked about it as a club. I understood there was an element of the class. So the real discussion here is so important to the board to provide what she's proposing is something need to be done to be put in class. Otherwise, I don't understand why robotics is more favored than any other club.
Well, it's competitive. It's a competitive team that is being wildly successful. On a shoestring.
Hold on.
Yeah, and
Edgar.
The thing is that what is being proposed is implementing a district-wide program in which elementary school students will be able to do robotics, not at a competition level, but at least get their hands on it, so that when they move into the middle school, they'll have more of an understanding and be more competitive. And then as they get to the high school, they'll be performing at a level that is going to blow up the current people out of the park because.
So why not make it a class and you got a fun travel or something?
Because the class is different function, but the club level is that at the 2 elementary schools, you'll have little kids being able to have a robotics program. And the amount they propose is so small that, I mean, not even the reduction of 125 from 150 is able to fund it because it's so small, right? So
what is the proposal for robotics? Where did you guys land? Or did you land?
We didn't land.
but they were doing things.
Yeah, no, I saw that, but we can't, the elementary stuff hasn't even come to us as a charter.
Right, it needs to run for a
So it's
year.
even smaller than the amount proposed.
So, I'm okay, I mean, I was on appendix B committee, so I definitely am okay with a change in robotics. I think it has to be funded more. I will tell you, I was concerned that there are no, in my opinion, there aren't enough guardrails on robotics in the sense of it's totally student-driven, which on one hand I support, but on the other hand, I think it's burning out potential coaches, and I don't think any other club operates that way. So I'm concerned about that from the perspective of funding it. So when I heard it's holidays, it's weekends, it's whenever the kids want to come in, that's concerning to me because we don't have that same equal access with any other club that we have.
So I that's another element of why I'm asking my question. Why can't, if it's this important, why can't it set up equal class with that as a commitment to the students?
Because the class is completely separate. So the class is a class at the high school, and not all kids in robotics take the robotics class. It's,
Well,
and my son couldn't have taken robotics; it wouldn't have fit in his schedule, and he was in robotics. So I support robotics. I am just very concerned with kind of that aspect of it. And
The reason that it was part of the time commitment for the students is because, yeah, you can do robotics and have you present yourself to competition with a certain robot, but if you're trying to modify the smaller things to make it perform better, you need that extra time because they're putting it together, you'd be surprised how hard it is, how time consuming it is to actually do it, and that's what eats up the time, right?
I don't understand.
Looking at it for this proposal is that you're putting in access to the elementary schools, and now you have a district-wide program that I think can attract people to the school district, because what we want to do is increase our numbers so their students, their kids can actually get into a program that provides a pretty competitive edge, because it's hard to find out there a current school district that does this.
So I'm in favor of putting in a director position and then funding it at what Appendix B did. That's what I'm in favor of. Can you remind us what the numbers were for the Appendix B? Well, it would be both for VHS and
It was $8,250.24
total
for total both schools.
but that didn't include the director position.
That did not include a director.
So I would support the director as well as the increase in 8,000. that I just
But at the end of the day, we haven't solved the burnout issue.
If we're adding a director, I believe that it helps. I believe that that was part of her.
Yeah.
So she did propose that, I think that was like for option B, is the director and then the increased stipends. I was the one that said that we should increase those, but to your point, she thinks that this will help, so if she believes that does, then I will support that.
With the appendix B recommendation for a year, like I see $6,920, would that be a year long or a season?
It was a year long. Appendix B's recommendation was that it be in its own category, the highest category for the year.
Would having a director complicate things for Appendix B?
It's not funded through Appendix B.
I just asking a question.
no, no, no.
And then I don't know, I also think, which is not part of the budget process, but I also think there, and maybe this is what I'm hoping a director could also do, which probably isn't part of that job description, but is actually to sit down and put, like, help put some, like, what is this gonna look like? Because I think it's been building and it's been amazing, but we still don't know, like, where's it gonna go? How do we get there? What's the roadmap so that there's something? So I think this is a starting point.
So for the robotics club, is this being funded because kids want to join this club? Do you want to fund it so they have some structure to learn skills?
Well, it's already funded. They already have money right now.
What I mean is, when I think of a club, it's done kind of part-time for adult supervision, and kids come or go as they want. The question is there a skill that you want, if you're going to invest this money into it, is there some skills you want these kids to walk out with?
Yeah, which is what, so think of it like, well, think of the director like an athletic director.
Yeah, I'm not
And then
disputing
think of, right, but what I'm saying is everything from all the STEM stuff to problem solving, creativity, engineering, programming, and then they're competing.
So obviously if the club's doing well now, somebody is there that's in that position to bring some structure, bring these things together. As part of what the decision you're making, you want to make that formal so that it gives a structure to the club. You bring it directly, there's certain qualifications, there's certain objectives that club needs to achieve. That's where we're going.
Yeah, so Amira actually did up job descriptions for what a director would do, because right now she's doing all of it in terms of logistics and organizing and volunteers and coaching at the same time. So it would be the logistics part, right, that the director would do, and then the coaching would be, she would be a coach.
And there was
So I've
criteria.
got a 12-year-old grandson for middle school. And this is a class, I'll drop a whole class discussion, but what I'm going to say is there's a structure to that. He likes to code. There's certain codes that require learners to have.
Correct.
And to me, if you're going to spend a lot of money on this club, then I would put some of those objectives around it. Maybe they exist already, I don't know. But if you're, I agree with the skill set you're talking about bringing together, then I would make that formal as part of the club chart or whatever.
So they have to learn to CAD, they learn on a couple of different softwares.
Yeah.
They have to learn Python to code.
Yeah, so is that structured? The club will always maintain that level of quality as part of this, maybe what you say is, look, we're going to fund this, but now we want the structure set up so we get this level of consistency.
The expectation of the students is that they need to learn these things to build competitive bonds.
In order to be competitive, you have to become proficient.
I'm agreeing with that. What I don't know is what's in place to make sure that that consistency is there so the club continues to achieve that level of quality. Just hiring a director is not answering the question.
Well, and I think that that's why we want to build the district-wide program. So they're going to start in elementary school and like start teaching them, get them experience and then build it up in middle school. And then by the time they get to high school, the idea is that they will have the skills that's needed to.
So you as a board being asked to fund this, if you got a plan, present it. If you fund, this is what it's going to be, here's the qualifications. These are what the club has to achieve.
It's not a have to achieve, but there are job descriptions for everything.
I mean, there's no way to predict
Right.
success.
I'm not predicting success, predicting a skill set. If you're bad.
Yes, so like you will learn Python, you will
Right.
learn to CAD, you will, yes, there is that criteria, those are the things you need to actually even participate. And without those skills, you wouldn't have a working body.
I understand without those skills, you wouldn't have a working body. I've certainly seen some of this locally. Some club did this over in Belmont Mall, it's pretty watching right now. What I'm not understanding right now is you have a person who's very dedicated to just making sure they're bringing students together with these skill sets. Apparently has some knowledge of coaching. Is that person dependent, or are you now talking about funding the program to make sure that continues? So it's not personal.
So it's, the idea behind it is, so, well, first of all, for a coach, you have to have certain qualifications and be certified in certain areas.
Sure.
So in addition to coaching, she is doing a significant amount of administrative work.
And I understand.
Yeah, and that's where the rest of it comes in. So when we first started talking about robotics, it was said to me, it's not about the person, it's about the position. And so the level of commitment of these students, like to me, if it was not her and it was someone else, they would still be expecting someone to help them guide in the Python and the coding and the padding and all of those things. It really is the students that are driving the success of this.
As it makes sense, should be.
I threw this out there several meetings ago and several times. If you go with MSP's recommendation and fund the director position, and when you funded it and passed the director position, Destination Imagination was $4,000 in the operating budget. So you're looking at an increase of the proposed operating budget, but reduce in other areas by
12,577.
So my concern with that is my son did Destination Imagination. Like you build up, it's minimal, I never knew there was a director, never saw it, never heard of it. That was a one-time event. Like these kids are doing competitions constantly.
Yeah,
Like,
this was a baseline.
Yeah.
So like that was a starter of the conversations of what the cost would be for a director position. I believe Mira threw out $10,000 that she said she reached for, and that was the number that she came up with. So that was just a start.
So
Just
this,
trying to funnel the conversation
Yeah.
into the
That's-
budget, it's the cost associated with robotics, because there isn't anyone around the table that's not going to say it's not important, it's great for kids.
So this payroll benefits per year position adjustment, the PSAT testing, and the classroom supplies for the CES fifth grade for next year, all of that adds up to $13,622.07. That feels like something you could put kids filled out this thing.
was the $8,250.24, did that include the amount we already pay? Or was that above and beyond what we currently pay?
That's the increase in funding.
and that includes the middle school.
Yes. So you did the director's stipend at $5,000 at the FICA workers' comp, and then the $8,250 for the appendix B committee's recommendation. That is a total of $13,660. That's great about there.
So, she was talking about the year one was going to be used, right? That included the coordinator, and it was what amount again? I can't remember.
So $8,250.24 was
No.
just the, she
The
was talking
proposal
about,
one.
proposal B, 24,000 something.
The increase was $21,000, but after the fixed costs associated with it, it came closer to $30,000, right? So they went up $30,000 increase because her proposal here for B includes multiple positions, as well as it was only based on a stipend without fixed cost, like the workers' comp and all that associated with that, which increases it another amount.
Yeah, that's assuming that who works higher is employee already on the school district.
No, they have to be an employee. If they're hired to be in that position, they become an employee.
Any, he adds $9,000 in increased costs?
Yeah. FICA, workers' comp, and if they're current employees, then they are retired as well.
But this year, this coming year, it wouldn't include the two elementary schools because there's no charters yet. And it wouldn't include it next year because
Correct.
it will be in the model. So that should be low less. And by the way, the going from 150 to 125, talking about a reduction of $40,000 there. I can easily cover that, fund that.
Or the administrative leaders.
On the funds part.
You're right, yeah, or the administrators at 2.5%, so another 12.5.
You're suggesting we cut the newspapers?
No, the
Oh, no, that was one of the potential
no, what he was saying.
He was
adjustments.
talking about this, Edgar was bringing up the subs, because Michael had put into the budget 150 a day. And if you go to 125 a day, it reduces by 40,000. Right
But part of
now,
what Michael said is that you know, track stuff.
subs right now get paid $100 a day. And correct me, but it's inner weights and
And we're at 150.
are at 150.
No, I accepted the 150 the last time we had this discussion, but I'm looking at somebody, what was it? What do you think it was? Subpay. I was not sure that's.
I think
Feel free to tell me I'm wrong.
I still think we haven't gotten to what, to Jill's motion, to get second. We went through the exercise last week of where are people comfortable? with
I
your-
tried.
With your increase.
I tried.
We're working on their
I'm
hours.
comfortable with whatever I put it out there with robotics. I do worry that 5,000 is too low for a director, I will say that. Only because Namira got to, I have to take into account fixed costs, which I know wasn't in there, but she was projecting the director, and she had numbers associated with it as a 0.26 FTE, which is how she got to the 10,000. 2.68, that's close, right? So there was some rationale behind it. The issue for me was I don't know what the fixed cost would be on that. I just want to make sure if we put the director position and we're going to relieve her or whoever these two are coordination, that there's enough for this person to coordinate them on time. That's my opinion.
I don't think it's going to be much of a relief for the coaching, because I think in large part, at least when I was coaching, you were doing, while you were there and opening up the building and, there late at night, you were trying to do double duty and take care of some of the administrative stuff. It doesn't take away from the sheer number of hours.
Well, she told us it would. So she was very clear even with Appendix B that it
Would help.
what she wrote up. So
Yeah.
that's where I was going. So,
So if you use the $10,000 figure with the fixed cost and the Appendix B recommendation, that's $19,070.
I don't disagree that $5,000 is too low for the director position, but this is a starting point.
yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
So it's back to Michael's question. One is what the board's aiming for is 1.82% increase. Now you had a lot of discussion with robotics. The robotics got fit for 1.82. It does what we think.
Well, and I don't think we've settled on if we're at 1.82 or
Right.
1.5 or 2. I feel like we have to figure out where we want to be and then figure out what we're taking off.
That's what I was saying, stick to the line. That way you're not jumping back and forth.
Yeah, I tried that, but it went poorly, so. So Alice, and I support the removing the PR benefits coordinator adjustment, PSAT, in classroom supplies for CES 5th grade and putting that towards robotics.
Sorry, teacher.
Correct.
We just need to find the other $5,447.90.
So do we need to make a decision on the other three? The administrators at 2.5%, specialists at 2.5%, subs at 125?
What's CODA? What's cost of living COLA? And that's what I think.
That's why these are at the 2.5 increase rather than, I forget what it was, 3.2.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the town of Canterbury is looking at 4% for town employees.
That is decided at the new January, decided.
I'm inclined to more inclined to leave the subs at 150 and then keep the other two at the 2.5 for 12, 5, 19, almost 20,000 in savings.
So, I don't know what's in the negotiated agreement with the teacher for sure it's 1.5. I'm not saying you pay the administrative staff that same amount, but it just doesn't feel right.
Well, the way I look at it is your administrators are among the or probably the highest paid in the building. So, in my opinion, they would be able to afford a little bit of a less of a bump than the teachers in the classroom.
I'm just putting myself in the shoes if I was an administrator, which is not taste good. It tastes good, not taste good to the point where if this is how they think of me, then I'm just going to start.
And I'm the opposite. I actually think going up to 150 a day for subs is a significant increase.
I'm not talking subs.
No, I know. I'm saying I'm the opposite. I would be more inclined to try 125 for subs because we've been at 100, so to essentially a 50% increase is big. So I would go to, I'd be, that.
So how much money do you need to fund 30,000?
For what?
To do the robotics?
Randy's looking for you.
I'm not even looking, I'm sorry, what?
When did we go to 100?
It was about 5 years ago.
So for me, this isn't even about, isn't about robotics, because I would not be in favor of, sorry Randy, but taking the 40,000 and putting it towards robotics. I'm just looking from a pure budget numbers to go from 100 to 150 is a lot.
Well, where I was going is, your logic makes sense. There's $40,000. Do you want to cut full 40, apply some into robotics? I would also argue spring a little bit more to the specialists and administrators. I'm just literally paying people that code or less and then deal with the fallout of
Well, right now, the administrators are in the budget and specialists for 3.2.
Yeah.
So how many of our administrators are hovering around 6 figures? Plus or minus?
Six.
And again, I'm not taking away the importance of the role, but I'm far less worried about someone making 6 figures than I am about, someone making, 30 or 40 or 50.
I just think I worry about market rate with administrators and specialists. Everybody's hiring a higher rate.
Well, I didn't mean to derail. So what I understand is right now, what you're suggesting is leave the subs at 2025. Right now, that's the only decision made, the administrative and specialist will stay at 3.2%.
Well, that's where I was.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's where everybody else
That's what I understand.
Framing it as a 50% increase does give me a little bit of pause, so I could get on board with the 125. That's- If we find that that doesn't,
How often are we short subs on a daily basis? And
Every day.
And approximately, are we short 5 throughout the district?
It really varies on the day.
Is there a guesstimate or an average or? So every day we're short subs at 100. All the surrounding districts are at 150.
Only 2 districts are at 150.
Oh, 2.
Interlakes and Freedom, which I don't know how much, just gonna be honest, but we're.
Freedom's at 100, yeah.
Well, also, like, I feel like we're closer to a larger population pool. So I can see why those areas, I mean, where is Freedom located?
Freedom's north, northeast of the northern part of Minnesota.
So yeah, like,
Go up to Ospey and head east.
half your population doesn't live there. So, like, I could see why they would have to go north, because people have to travel there. Oh. So the subs at 125, the coordinator position adjustment, PSAT testing, and classroom supplies comes up to $54,192.63, I think.
Yep.
And then if we deduct 19,070, that would decrease our 1.82 budget number by $35,122.63. So you'd be below the 1.2. And then robotics is correct. I can get on board with that.
And if you reduce the $72,000 in the budget, we have much more.
Teacher?
Now, yeah, you can keep that teacher, but reduce the other lines in the budget to that line. I know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know if it would specifically be those lines though, because we would want to get rid of the testing, we wouldn't want to jeopardize our NEASC accreditation at the high school, and there was a third, right? There was a third.
Yeah, you wouldn't, yeah, but you would still pay those things. I don't know, about $72,000.
Assuming you didn't have to hire a teacher.
Well, then not fifth graders.
So we were talking about who's
But they're using it for another class.
Well, maybe we don't do that. In order to keep the budget as close to the default as possible. Because what happens is, like, if the default is approved, all this stuff right here is the path to the default rate. On this potential, is the path, which is what will get cut.
So with the changes that were proposed, we would be reducing this budget 35,123, 124 roughly. So that brings us at a 1.69% subtotal general fund and a 0.93 total budget. So that's not really that much further off from the default. Correct. Subtotal.
But it is reducing 146,000 almost on the budget.
So that would be if they got rid of everything.
Yeah.
The administrators go down to 2.5, the specialists go to 2.5.
So what if we,
And you wouldn't get rid of the teacher because you would just reduce the other lines in those single item things. Like the license is one-time payment, that's $43,000. So that means next year you'll have to look for it. And then that's the 12.5, you won't have that next year.
So what? Yes.
Meeting?
But what
Yes,
is
we
it?
will. There's still gonna be NEAS for a couple of years.
Yeah, but it won't, will be,
It'll be more.
yeah, that's gonna happen no matter what. Right.
So what did you, can you tell me again? If we, what did you just say? You reduced it by 30, whatever?
It would reduce it a total of $35,124. That's taking out the payroll benefits, PSAT testing, the classroom supplies, and cutting the $40,000 out for the subs.
Okay.
And then putting in $19,069 for robotics. That takes the budget to a subtotal to a 1.69% increase.
So the same as what's on this paper. Why is that?
It's just the way it's worked around. Because we removed some of the positions to add money.
Just asking.
Yeah, it's not the same dollar amount, it's the same percentage amount though. Yeah.
I know Edgar, you're wanting to reduce that more. I don't know where to go with that.
I'm comfortable with reducing it with the subs, the benefits coordinator position, just in PSAT classroom supplies, and then allocating, I forget what the amount is for robotics.
$19,069.
That's where I'm at. Me three.
Gentlemen?
Doesn't matter, you guys for it.
I'm not supporting it. Look at the numbers, so it's an emotional. Very emotional.
Motion to approve the proposed budget with a 1.69% increase.
Second. Additional discussion. Anyone, are you on the same page?
I'm doing a lot of this. I agree the 1.69%, and it's really not much higher than the 1.25 budget. Right? I mean, you have to go through the film down and try to come up with whatever it is for the $72,000, and I think that collectively, I think the board has done a great job getting us down to the 1.69. I think it's responsible. I think we're keeping in benefits to charities is important. Administrators, I don't agree that they don't deserve it, they're making money, but
Sorry, put you on the spot. Any others from Edgar or Jay?
I mean, what was decided, what was stated was the 169, but it didn't specify what was kept and what was removed. Because if you look on the paper, 169 will be included in all those statements. So it didn't specify what was being removed.
So,
I think that's important
Okay.
for Edgar, so that should be in your motion.
All right, you want me to change that? So it's,
If you change it, your second has to agree, but yes.
all right, so it would be a motion to approve the proposed 1.69% budget with the noted changes. Decrease subs to 125 a day. Remove the PR benefits coordinator position. Remove the additional PSAT testing. Remove the fifth grade classroom supplies. And then add $19,069 for robotics, $10,000 of that being a non-appendix B director position, and $8,250, and 24 of that being the approving the noted appendix B changes.
but the 10,000 has to include fixed cost items.
So it's 10,000 is more than 10,000?
It's 10,818.81.
10,818.81
And
fixed
it's
cost.
not going to be able to share benefits for your position in the adjustment.
Thank you, the adjustment.
So,
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I agree personally. So, okay.
Okay, did that help?
Well, are you talking about approving the budget, or are you talking about approving those things?
It was all inclusive.
So you're not gonna talk about administrative and specialist discount?
Those stay at the 3.2 in this proposal.
Well, it's 2.5.
The proposal is 3.2.
Yeah, I know about the COLA for this year, it's 2.5.
Correct.
So you're giving them more than the COLA that everybody else is getting.
Everybody else of the teacher contract is,
No, the retirees, we get only 2.5.
I get nothing, so I don't know how that works.
Time what taxes.
I don't always get a pay increase every year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They will get 2.2 instead of 2.5.
Thoughts?
I don't feel like we're voting yea and nay until we get the student enrollment data anyway. But, I mean, we're close.
Well, the motion on the table is to approve the budget at 1.69 with what Randy said. Which I can, does everyone know what she suggested? Call vote. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I'd say abstention, but that's all said. So can you? Yeah. Oh, yeah, passed. 43.
So we have a budget relative on our agenda for next Tuesday. We'll provide the board that may updated budget summary sheet. So you have that. We'll also talk about public hearing as well as.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to public communication and correspondence. Anything you want to say?
Thanks for all of your hard work. That was fun to listen to. The only other thing I want to add is I have a current first grader, and this first grade cohort coming up into second grade is quite rambunctious and spends a lot of time in Principal Chubb's office. So that might be something to be thinking about with regards to a flex teacher next year. I think in the class of 9 or 10 for my daughter, I would anticipate probably 50% on 504 or IEP level support. So I think that's something to be thinking about with regards to that flex. Oh, I'm Rebecca Plue, Plue.
Thank you. Sorry. Anything you'd like to say? You don't have to.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.